So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to turn your final sketch, okay, into a actual template for your project, okay? So I just passed back to you guys your worksheet, so you should have your final sketch in front of you. We're not going to look at those preliminary ones because, we moved on from those. So you should be looking at your final. And I'm going to zoom into this a bit so you guys can see this. What I want you to do is we're just going to mark a couple measurements on here, okay? So the first thing you want to mark up here at the very top of your vessel, that's going to be 12 inches tall. So everyone is going to build a 12-inch tall vessel, okay? Regardless of your design, everybody's going to have a 12-inch tall vessel, okay? So you can go ahead and mark, and you can do this any way you want to. You can see how I kind of marked it on here, off to the side. Is that from bottom to top, this represents 12 inches. Okay, so go ahead and do that right on top of your design. And then the next thing I want you guys to do, and it's actually easier to do this with your project kind of on the side, at least for me it is. So what I'll do is, I will take my two fingers and I'll put it at the top and the bottom of my project, and then I just kind of drag them into the middle to help me find the middle. That middle, then, once I figure out the middle, draw a line across there. That represents what your project should look like, about halfway up, okay? So find the middle of your project, so the midpoint between the top and the bottom. Draw a line across. That should be what your project looks like at 6 inches tall. All right? And then the very bottom of your vessel, everyone's going to have the same type of base, same size, same shape. It's going to be a round circle, and it's going to be 5 inches wide. So you can go ahead and measure, kind of mark that measurement there at the very bottom as 5 inches. I'm going to try to darken that up a little bit. So again, everybody, regardless of your design, is going to have a 5-inch wide base. So everybody's going to have a 5-inch wide base. Everybody's project's going to be 12 inches tall. And then the midpoint, halfway between the top and the bottom, that's going to be what your project should look like at 6 inches tall. Okay? Alright, so first thing we're going to do, can kind of set this off to the side a little bit. I am going to zoom this back out so you can see this whole sheet of paper. Alright, I want you guys to lay your paper in front of you so it's really nice and wide. Okay? Put your tab board so that it's nice and wide. So if you put your ruler, if you have one of those 18-inch long rulers, if you put that ruler at the bottom of your paper, you will notice that that paper is exactly 18 inches wide. Okay? What I want you guys to do is I want you to find the middle of that. So, what is 18 divided by 2? 9. So, what I want you guys to do is make a mark at the 9-inch mark right here on the ruler on the paper. So at 9 inches, mark your paper there at the bottom. Now then I want you guys to take your ruler, lift it up and put it all the way up here to the top of your tag board. And I want you to do the same thing. So mark it at 9 inches. Right there. So now you should have a mark here at the top of your paper at 9 inches and a mark at the bottom of your paper at 9 inches. And then what I'm going to have you guys do is go ahead and connect those two. And for this, you guys don't have to worry about doing nice light lines. We're not drawing, so you're just going to draw that line straight down the middle, just like so. Okay? I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to do that, and I'm going to come around and check to see how you guys are doing. So now, what we're going to do, okay, so this line right here is going to represent the middle of our project. So if you want to, you can take your ruler, and I've already done this on my paper, is kind of find the middle of your project and draw a line straight down the middle of it on your worksheet. This line represents that line. Okay, so again, this line represents this line. So now what I'm going to have you guys do, and this is something that's helpful, is I want you to mark the middle of this line right here. Now, believe it or not, this right here, total height is 12 inches. So this right here represents the height of our project. Okay, so this is 12 inches tall. And remember, we're going to make our project 12 inches tall. Okay? So what I want you guys to do, I want you to divide it in half. So 12 divided by 2 is what? 6. All right. You guys got math skills. So we're going to divide it in half. And I'm just going to kind of make a mark right there like that, just big enough that I can see. So this represents the middle of my project, which is right here on my drawing. Okay? So it gives me an idea of what needs to happen, you know, below and above this midpoint. So if you guys look at my sketch over here on the left side, I have a pretty big form change happening here on the left side above the midpoint, and then I have a big form change over here on the right side below that midpoint. So that kind of helps me determine where those need to actually go. Now the next thing I'm going to do, because I know that my base is 5 inches wide, what is 5 divided by 2? 2.5. So what I'm going to do is take my ruler, okay, and I'm going to match up this midpoint line to 2.5. So the 2.5 mark on my ruler. I'm going to kind of zoom this in so you guys can see it. Lift this up. This up's getting in the way. So again, I am going to match up this midline to that 2.5 inch mark. And then I'm just going to mark right here at the end of my ruler where the 0 mark would be, and right here at the 5 inch mark, so that this way now I know exactly how wide 5 inches actually looks like. Okay? I'll leave that ruler there so you guys can kind of see that. I'll zoom in. Again, this is the bottom of my paper. This is my midline. I have it matched up to the 2.5 inch mark here on my ruler. I made a mark here at the 0 mark and at the 5 inch mark, because again, my base needs to be 5 inches wide. I'm going to give you guys a minute to do that. Next, we're going to start drawing. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. Wrong one. Alright, so now basically what I want to do is I want to draw my form out. Okay, so I want to draw my form out. Now I know for me, over here on the left side, my high side needs to be up here above this mark, okay? And I know that this form change right here needs to be below. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of guess at where I think those need to be. So I'm just going to kind of put, for me, dots where I see these big form changes. Now, of course, your design is different than mine, so you guys need to be putting your marks in other places. Okay, so you're not going to be doing the same thing that I'm doing. Now, the other thing we have to make sure about is that we're not going too wide. Because remember what I told you about projects that get too wide. One, they take longer to do, and two, a lot of times the next day we come in and they're pancakes. So, I'm just kind of guessing where I think these big form changes need to be. I would do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of do the first set here, just the bottom, and I'll worry about the top later. And because I have an angular project, I'm going to go ahead and use a ruler to draw this out, but if you have a curvy vessel, you're probably not going to be using a ruler. So I just want to draw to see what that kind of looks like. okay with that for now. And then if you guys look on my design, it comes in. Again, these 2 points right here are not even with each other. One's low and one's high. So what I'm going to do, so I'm again going to kind of guess at where these points need to be. So I'm going to put dots there, and because again I have an angular vessel, I'm going to use a ruler, but if you do not, you should probably be using just your pencil and just kind of doing curvy lines. And then up here at the top, we're just going to pretend like we have boring tops. If you guys remember, I told you I didn't want you to design a flat top. Well, today we're going to pretend like we're boring people, but we're not. And I'm just going to pretend like it is flat, because what we're actually going to do is we will build them up as if we have flat tops, and then we will cut these designs out of the clay. It's much easier to do it that way than try to build it like that. So once you kind of do your best guess here, this is where then you make revisions. Like I kind of don't like this side right here, so this is where, I might make some changes and play around with it. But basically what you'll have here is sort of a silhouette of what your project will look like. So it might take some time for you to kind of play around with this. And this is not something that's going to, you're going to get right the first time. So play around with it until you get the form that you want, okay? Yeah, that's okay. So I'm going to give you guys some time to play around with that, and I'm going to talk about some things that then afterwards that you just kind of need to be careful about. So I'll give you guys some time to kind of play around with your sketches. Okay, so here is, again, what I think will be my finished sort of templates for my form, okay? This is based off of this design, so that's what the design looked like, and this is what I kind of got when I did the template. Now remember, if you guys look, okay, we are doing some fancy stuff up here with the top of our project, but I did not draw that on here. So all that I did was I basically pretended like I was doing sort of like a boring traditional top here, okay? Because what we're going to do is when we actually build this in the clay, we're going to build the clay all the way up, and we are going to have a flat top. But then what we'll do before we finish everything is we're going to cut the clay in that design that we created, okay? But we have to build it up first. So that's why that looks like this and that looks like that, all right? So now what I'm going to do, and you guys can do this part, okay, is that I want you to write your name up here on your tag board. So I'm going to put Mrs. Gower. And I'm going to put it on both pieces, both sides here. Now, because a lot of us have asymmetrical designs, you need to also write on here left and right. So we know which one is the left side and which one is the right side. I should probably put this in Sharpie so you guys can see it. Alright, so that way it's labeled, okay? So now what you're going to do, okay, and I'm going to write this down on here, and you can put this in the center of your project if you want to. This is the part that we are going to cut out, okay, and get rid of. So this is going to go in the trash, this part. We are keeping these parts. Keep, okay? So if you want to, you can write that stuff on there too, so you know which pieces to keep and which pieces are going to get thrown away. Now, I will say this, I do have some students who like to keep this. If you want to keep it, you can, but we're not actually going to use it, but some kids like to kind of just have it. So if you want to keep it, that's fine, but we're actually going to be using these two pieces. Now, this is the part that I don't want you to do right now because I want to check your templates before you do this. But the next step then for you is to actually cut this out. And you're going to just use the scissors that you got. Again, don't do this part yet, because I want to check to make sure that your design is good to go. So I'd hate for you to have to start all over again with this. So I've got that part, so this is a piece that I'm going to keep. And then I'm going to cut out this one. You want to do a nice neat job with your cutting, because this is what you're going to use to help you with your building. Okay. So this is basically a silhouette of my project, but I'm going to be using these two sheets to help me with my building. Okay? So I'm going to keep these. This will get thrown away, but again, if you want to keep it, you can. But this represents that. Okay? And this is what we're going to help us use with the building. Alright, so I'm going to leave that right here, right there. Well, that's not going to, I can't get both on there, so this is the one we want to keep. So that's what you guys are going to do. But do not start cutting until I check you off first, alright? So that's how you make your template.